the Fork River School Building Committee, I believe, meeting number 8 on April 23rd, and this meeting is being recorded by Amherst Media. On the meeting to order. We'll pass out agendas. We have one for a second. Two guys here. And I got enough in the file. And first item after calling this meeting to order is the approval of the previous meeting minutes. And there was an item that was not, that our recorder had a hard time hearing. And I personally didn't have a chance to go back and listen to the recordings of our last meeting. But I wondered if others did, or if others remembered the piece that was unclear. If not, just move on. But
I didn't have a chance to look at my notes from last meeting, but I feel like I do have notes from last meeting, and I might be able to clarify that. And it was a question about money, $400 and $2,000. Yeah.
And the numbers didn't. Numbers rang a bell, but the way it was phrased didn't.
Yeah, I think the 2,000 is probably the town council.
Okay, that sounds
that
right.
That sounds familiar, but.
And then the other thing, there was in section 6, it's Bangs Community Center.
Yes.
Yeah, not Banks.
Oh, yes.
That was it.
That is true.
And I had a question about number 5, where it says the positions to fill are 2 for teacher, staff, and 1 for town manager. Is that
one? I think it was 1 by the town
Manager.
Yeah,
by
town. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's really, I think, Anthony's slot.
okay?
So that
okay.
was being
Thanks.
filled at
Okay.
the time that was happening.
That's more just clarification.
And Ben is filling one of the faculty staff slots, and we therefore have 1 open.
Okay,
For
thanks.
clarity. Okay. Other than those items, is there anything else that needs clarification in the minutes? None? Anyone willing to make a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
Move to accept the minutes as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The next item is our public comment here. Oh, sorry.
We still have to approve the week 6 minutes.
Oh, that's right. Would someone like to move to approve the week 6?
I move to approve the week 6 minutes.
All in favor? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Public comments. No commenting today. So we will move on to review. We have a fairly long agenda given what we want to do today, so I'm going to try to move us along, but stop me if I'm moving too fast. But the next item is review the RFQ for designers. And I'm going to kind of hand it over to Ian.
Okay, so if we are going to do a walkthrough on May 9th, then, and if we will have no other meetings between now and then, which is what it looks like according to the doodle poll, in order to publish in time, we must approve tonight.
We'll come back to the topic of meetings and whatnot afterward, but on the chances that we might have.
We have kind of worked to wrap up any outstanding details. I ran this by a colleague over the weekend and got some input. I'm feeling pretty good about it. Items that I think merit discussion are highlighted. Perhaps it makes sense to just kind of start at the beginning and just work through as a group. Okay. So on the cover, I have just kind of picked a deadline of Wednesday, May 30th. If I send the ads out this week, they have to go in the Central Register, which means they'll be published next Wednesday. That basically gives a month to respond. I feel that's a pretty good amount of time, but I'm open to the suggestion, by the way.
I think there's going to be very little time for the walkthrough until the advertisement on the date of the walkthrough, because the walkthrough we had said May 9, because it was the day that was a fact day. And is it 1 week notice enough time?
It cannot, if we are having the walkthrough on the 9th, I cannot publish sooner than next Wednesday. That is,
I would say it's okay. I mean, I've had to respond to turnarounds that fast. It's not ideal. 2 weeks would be nice. You know, I personally would prefer if we could keep it a mandatory walkthrough, but sometimes when the time's tight, if we could do a non-mandatory one. But folks who pursue this kind of work are typically watching the central register for postings, and they kind of have to react quickly. But
Do we want to get in a position where if they don't attend, they're excluded?
That's what it says.
I understand that's what
Right.
it says. Is that what we want? Because the time is short.
the time is short, and
I'm coming back.
Yeah.
This is different.
I would be a little nervous. I don't want to exclude people if we're feeling tight. I do want to keep to the May 9th date if we can do it. Pardon me. Just given the shortness of our overall schedule. What?
Is Wednesday, the second? May second?
Yes.
I don't feel like it's too short.
You think we can still?
I think that any firm that's interested in pursuing this has enough depth that they'll
Yeah.
have somebody that.
Right, so so then the due date of May 30th works for everyone? Not too soon, not too late. Alright. 2 p.m. is only because that's normally my deadline, just have it. No changes on the first page other than format, I'm sorry, the second page, part 1, other than formatting. If there's any, but yeah, if anyone has a comment.
So I'm sorry, I was out of town all last week, so I didn't get a chance to review it before you sent it today. So I have some wordsmithing things that maybe I should just send you offline rather than discuss, because they're more like jargon, right? Like architectural jargon, and not what we're discussing. I don't know.
I don't know if that constitutes deliberation.
You should want the.
But I mean, we as a committee worked offline. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they're minor, kind of, it's probably okay, but-
Are they words or are they entire sentences? Parts of
It's
sentences?
mostly words, yeah. The only sentence on the first page that I'd like to take out is the estimated construction budget for the potential project may be arranged from blank to blank. I don't think we have enough information to set an appropriate range.
I think that's probably true.
That's why it was kind of highlighted. That was one of my questions.
Oh, that's it, it's highlighted?
It's hard to.
Yeah,
it's-
sorry.
it's-
I'm
Unfortunately,
working
it's
with that one.
Oh, in black and white, sorry, I printed it.
there's
can't
there's
review
a
things
fresh
on
copy up there.
Yeah, mine in black and
So
white.
that's the duration that is copied before the duration.
Let me straight that sentence.
I'll show you this figure. On the second page,
So are we striking it out that phrase?
The estimated construction budget, that entire sentence, yes, we'll strike.
So I guess in that sense, I think we should, if we can, try to work through as many of them as we can that everybody has, because I have a feeling there might be more that are just like that.
okay.
Because I had a few kind of words in one as we went through.
Okay, anything else on page 2?
Sorry. Oh, like,
No, could you grab a copy of the document on your down? Realizing the highlights on it, they don't show up in my.
so in the second paragraph, after to provide professional design services for a feasibility study to address improvements at the Fort River School, which will include a range of viable options.
I'm okay with that.
So it's just relocating the which will include to the end.
So it now reads, provide professional design services for a feasibility study to address improvements in the Fort River School site, which will include a range of options,
A range of viable options.
a range of viable options.
So then the second to last paragraph, second sentence, design work should explore renovation, addition, demolition, and new construction not limited to. just seems like demolition is not limited to the current footprint. And when we're really saying new construction is not limited to the current.
So move the parenthetical to the end of the
Yes,
sentence.
please.
I think that's an artifact of mashing two sentences together.
Absolutely. That's my
Okay.
comments on that.
Third page, which begins with recently the roof.
I have one under safety, third bullet point. Third bullet point, safety, third bullet point, blocked egresses. This is a maintenance issue. I think it shouldn't be phrased this way because it presents a liability to the school. So if we wanna move away from maintenance requirements at doors, this sounds more like we're interested in overhangs and protect the egress paths.
Okay.
So strike it.
Strike it or move it?
Or say a concern if there isn't
Reducing-
any
reducing-
coverage.
Yeah, or reducing,
Lack of coverage at,
or reducing unnecessary maintenance requirements.
By providing overhangs at egress.
Yeah, I don't even know if we need to propose a
probably other
solution, I
things
think
like-
we're just looking at reducing maintenance costs and requirements.
Which would go under infrastructure? Sure. Reducing maintenance costs. and requirements.
Or just to be consistent with the, we're basically describing the challenges, right? So instead of saying reducing maintenance, you could, you just want it to not
Not
have
say
that
that we're
blocked
blocking
egress.
Excessive
Um,
maintenance.
which I'm sure we're not.
Excessive maintenance costs and requirements.
Yeah.
You're right, to maintain the parallel structure. Anything else on that page?
The ADA and the non-code compliant, out of date or non-current. This is not technically out of code until we start construction. Or, yeah, until we start construction.
So there's something that triggers compliance.
Out of date. Okay.
And then my last question is under infrastructure, and it's about the generator. The fact that it says inadequate. What is the generator meant to serve? The emergency lighting systems?
So the emergency lighting systems, the sewage ejector, and the emergency systems within the building.
It currently has the capacity to do that, and we want it to do more, or it currently is borderline?
It has sufficient capacity, but it is vastly out of date.
Gotcha.
And for clarity, it is on the town meeting to replace the generator this year, but it's not yet approved. So we can either strike it or
So that would be the question, because it says inadequate electrical system, that is again liability issue, whether is it liability because inadequate electrical system?
I don't see that as much of a problem as the generator, because the generator is meant to serve health and life safety issues.
But it here says electrical system.
So the-
Yeah, there's the two.
There's both of them.
Yeah.
So for clarity, the electrical system is not as robust as it could be, but it's not unsafe or non-code compliant.
Right.
In there, it's not an emergency generator, it is a standby generator.
Okay, so
Okay.
stand by my apologies. So I think the difference would be like in a classroom, there might not be enough electrical outlets,
Exactly.
preferred density of
Okay.
electrical outlets. It's not, it's,
It's not unsafe.
yes,
Right.
exactly.
I was actually remembering that was on the list for the
Yes.
capital
Yes.
projects. I mean, I don't want to get ahead of town meeting with voting on the item, on the one hand, but on the other hand, what do we know what people think? We leave it in.
Precisely at this moment, it is not approved.
And
So this
later-
list may change some.
So we might as well
now.
leave it in,
Right.
and the point is, we can certainly tell whoever we hire, oh, by the way,
Yeah.
take that off, we fixed it.
I don't think this list is meant to be
Yeah,
comprehensive.
exactly, no.
Right.
So I'm striking that last bullet thing.
No.
We're keeping.
No, keeping it.
Just
Keep-
checking.
Okay. Anything else on that page? Okay, the next page, beginning with feasibility study shall. So I did make one addition here that is not highlighted. In item 1D, I added this item in the middle of the section. Opine if the project lends itself to chapter 149, construction management at risk process, and how that would impact overall cost.
So I have to say, I was wondering if that whole paragraph D, was really beyond our scope. Because we end at a feasibility study, another committee at some point is gonna have to pick up with, even if it's an abbreviated feasibility study. And so, I don't know. I just wondered if we needed that entirely. I didn't mind that particular sentence.
I guess it comes down to the options that we're receiving the report on. They'll come with cost estimates. Are we also interested in seeing if those options should be phased in a certain
Yeah.
way? Or, I think that in that case, you would wanna have some feedback on that. Like an addition and a demolition would require some phasing.
And if it's an option that the town would self-fund, then yeah, that'd be very.
And
something with
similar to
DSP.
new construction on the site.
So that's the only place where we're talking about, like, we would have to find temporary housing for students. So that would be a big difference between
There would be
entirely
a
new
line
construction
item.
outside of the.
Right, there should be a line item in the cost estimate that describes that along with some narrative that says this is what it's for.
Can you just enlighten me? Is the insertion of the opine about chapter 149 construction manager risk process, is that an entirely like animal, or is that, to me that reads as if there are a number of things you want to have in there and that's being added into the list, and you could just as easily eliminate that.
So
And still or not. Just explain.
So it's a relatively new option available under Chapter 149, and I won't pretend to understand every bit of it myself. But unlike design, bid, build, you and the designer basically set a ceiling not a ceiling price on the construction, and the process works a little bit differently. So it's something that is available, and I wouldn't mind seeing input on it in this stage. But
So construction manager at risk, the construction manager is usually brought in before the construction documents are finished. They weigh in on process constructability, cost savings options. Their contract puts them at risk because they agree to a guaranteed maximum price and that they won't deliver the project for over that price. And so that's where the at-risk part comes from. So you're getting a set price, that guaranteed maximum price, and they're willing to do that because they were brought into the project so much earlier, and they've been able to weigh in on some of the critical decisions.
So that to me that reinforces what I was just saying, that I think the observation that you would want to have in here, knowing if the work could or should be sequenced and what the impact would be on the operations of the building. That's sort of like one issue, and it makes sense to have that included. It seems like a separate item that might also make sense to include, to know whether this was desirable to do it as a construction manager risk project and what the implications would be. Those seem like they're separable questions to me.
It should be separated.
And maybe this is separate, it's an item F.
Yeah.
okay, so how would you break it up?
Take out the sentence you put in. Yeah.
And only that.
And only that.
Everything else stays.
Yep.
Break that to. So it's
Just wait for the chair.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
So, bringing that in, the construction manager at risk, is that something that we need for this feasibility study that we're gonna be doing, given that it ends before schematic design? And I'm just wondering, what do you want them to, what are you suggesting that they would be offering at this stage for us?
nothing more than what that sentence really has, with their opinion on whether the project lends itself to it. I think is all you would merit at this stage. But
Would there be something that would make it not, lend itself to construction manager? Because that's my question. Is this like, would the answer
Yeah,
always be
there's-
yes?
Well, in the private sector, the answer often is yes, especially on a renovation project. It's the path of choice a lot of the time. in the public sector, it's a little harder to negotiate. This is a relatively new delivery method for construction in the public sector, and I don't know how far it's worked its way through the public schools. Most of the public schools I've heard about have always gone through the design bid build, but that doesn't mean it has to be the way. And it might be interesting from the town's perspective to hear a designer's opinion on it. They've gone through that other pathway because it controls cost in a different way. I think it's worth hearing about. You know, again, there'll be another feasibility committee that'll have to go through this process. If we do go through the state's process, there'll be an OPM who have strong opinions on this too. But I don't know, if we're going to conclude the other piece, I think it's worth concluding this.
I agree.
Budget-wise, does it make, I would guess that this is an expensive add-on,
Not
not
necessarily.
necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, in the non-public world, in a renovation project, at least our experience has been, it's as competitive or less expensive because when you bring the CM in early, they're able to manage some of the risk the GC has to assume when they do the design bid build process. But again, I have never gone through a public project that went through this, so I don't want to speak further than my knowledge really goes.
So this is fairly widespread in the federal sector. It saves a considerable amount, but you're exactly right. The team has to be on
Right.
board, and I am not familiar with the Massachusetts specifics.
Almost all of my projects are delivered CM at risk, but they're all private.
And if we include it in here, it's not like we're committing to it, we're just having some information for the next phase, which
Exactly.
I can't think of any reason not to include it, just so, because we'd have some information.
And I would suggest that this is the place where the experience of a deep team would really be helpful to give us a look forward to how we can procure it and the prices associated with it.
So at the beginning of at the end of the paragraph marked 1, at the end of it, there's a highlighted sentence there, at least one option shall include renovation, addition, and demolition, which was a suggestion that I added in. I think it's good to have it. I'm wondering if we want more, if we want more specifics on what we want to see there. I know we had quite a bit of discussion last time about this, so.
I like that sentence. The only thing I would add is at least one option each for those things. And with the demolition to add new construction. Demolition of new construction.
So at least one option each.
Can you explain what you mean by that?
Like each. So we want one that's renovation, one that's addition, one that's demolition and new construction.
No, I think the point was to have one option be add demo reno. To have one of the options have an addition, well, some combination of those three things. Either a renovation, but if you don't do an addition, you're in the same footprint. If you don't do demolition, you're in the same footprint. So renovation, but also renovation that would have addition and or demolition as part of it. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So you can renovate within the current footprint, and then you just
Yes.
call that renovation. You
That's
can renovate
option one.
and you can, well, no. So you can renovate and build an addition, or you can renovate, build an addition, and demolish part of the building as well. So there can be a combination. So if the renovation option is purely within the same footprint, I don't think that's sufficient. I think that a renovation option should include something that would have addition and or demolition associated with it.
So strike the word each.
I thought we wanted, the last time we got together, to make sure that we had a representative, at least 3 representative, widely representative solutions that the design team studied in depth. One that was some combination of renovation, addition, demolition, but also one that was purely new construction. And I guess
So it's like, yeah, my understanding is that it's a range of
Right.
minimal to most intensive, with at least one option that's sort of the midway, is how I understood it.
But the minimal, I think you're calling the renovation the minimal, but the minimal might not be just a renovation with an addition and demolition might be less expensive than doing only renovation. It depends how you do it and how you tackle it. So, just because it's renovation might not be the minimum.
Yeah, I don't mean minimal by money, I mean minimal by being inside the envelope. Being inside the envelope with maybe an addition, and some maybe demolition, who knows, or being completely outside of the envelope with a new school and demolishing the old one.
So are we, I guess the question ends up being whether we feel like we're specifying the range of options, or whether we're trying, because it seems what I'm hearing is sort of two different viewpoints of one, sort of specifying the range of options, or at least the typology of range of options, and then the other one is saying at a minimum, we want to have one of the options include renovation or partial demolition or something.
Or another way to say it is we want one of the options not to be complete demolition and new construction. And that's the goal in this, is that,
We
because I don't think that the
Yeah.
I think
sentence
that's
very
right.
clearly
Yeah,
says that, and I think we just need to come up with a way to clarify the sentence, or, so that we're really clear that, because I think if we put them into too many, like we want one that's this, and one that's this, we might not get the best thinking, whereas if we say we want three, one of them needs not to be complete demolition and new construction. But I don't know exactly, that's not the wording I'm suggesting, but that's the point we want to get across.
Makes sense.
So we're thinking in two different fashions, so within the footprint plus a little bit, and outside the footprint would be the three options.
Well, I like your interpretation, Allison. I do think that if we say that we want one of them to at least not be demolition and new construction, that doesn't fit them into too tight of a box, and lends to more creative design thinking and problem solving.
but I think we, as a group, still wanted three options, and so,
But we don't need to specify the
Right.
other two, right? If we say one of them needs to be renovation or, partial demolition, some combination, not a complete demolition and new
Yeah,
construction. Then that, then it lends itself to creativity for the other two, right?
Or only one of which can be complete demolition and new construction.
Yeah.
does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, what she just said is the last sentence, only one option.
So then you're defining it by what was
Well, do you want to limit it? I mean, I guess, going back, do you want to limit it to just one way of building a new building, right? So the point is, we want to make sure that one of the things they provide us with is something that's going to address renovation within or without the current footprint, right? You're gonna get a new construction, you're gonna get at least one new construction. There may be more than one new construction, for that matter, there could be more than one add demo reno, right? So, but what I think this is saying is that you can't just give us new construction.
Right.
So I wouldn't want to say just one of any of them.
Someone tell me what to write.
Yeah, I know.
So at least one, I think is what, at least one something, what do you go for?
At least one option shall include demolition and new construction.
Renovation, at least, making use of some portion of at least some portion of the existing structure. At least.
Yeah, we don't want to necessarily box ourselves in on either end.
At least one of which will include renovation with or without, with the possibility of addition and demolition.
At least one option shall include partial renovation within the existing footprint.
At
We
least,
might wanna-
how about you
Well,
keep
there has
it
to
the
be
way
with
it
the
is?
existing footprint.
Yeah,
At least one option shall include renovation, addition, and or demolition.
I mean, you can just get rid of the commas and ands and put reno slash addition slash demolition.
Partial demolition.
yeah, because there's something about the way the sentence read with
Yeah.
renovation, addition, and demolition. It was like, whoa.
It sounds like all options,
Yeah.
right? So you can renovate or you can demolish.
Yeah.
We could say something, instead of phrasing it this way, say, 3 options must be explored from a range of renovation through new construction. So we want to explore that whole range, we want to understand the whole gamut. And thou shalt do 3,
At least 3, we said.
at least 3. Well, I think we wanted to, they're gonna explore a lot at the beginning, we wanna have them focus more intensely on 3, because I think it says further down in this document.
Why we go like that, but I say no two shall be the same,
No more than 2
shall be of
explore the same range.
range.
Yeah, I mean, we will obviously be participating in this, we're gonna make sure that they
I
do
was just
explore a
going to
range.
say that we don't have to
Yeah.
get this exactly right. I think it just needs to be indicated.
Yes. So then my only thing is shall is contractually a very strong word.
Yes,
So either if we're comfortable with negotiating when they're on board and expressing our desires, then this should be should instead of shall. Shall is like you don't have any options but to get done.
I think that
So should
shall-
include renovations slash
that would
addition.
just then-
Are we going with the
Partial.
slashes?
Should include at least 3 options with renovation, addition, demolition, and new construction all considered.
yes, I like that.
Why not? Why not shall? I mean, I think they really shall do it, and it shouldn't be should. I think that's the point. That has to be part of the end product.
I'm just making a point about the word in the sentence and whether we want to express exactly what the deliverables are afterwards or in the RFQ.
So I think, again, waving the we're over budget flag here, should is gonna help us negotiate back and keep you out of trouble in the course of that. We're gonna have a lot of discussion about what we can't do
And there's gonna be
and this feasibility
a series of milestones where the designer comes to us, and we give them direction to go on to the next phase. If we don't like where they are, they don't get to move on from that phase.
I think the key thing though is that we're saying that we do want to end up with a range of options that will include, in other words, we're not going to negotiate ourselves out of having an option that includes renovation or partial demolition. I mean, that is going to be one of the deliverables we want to be able to hand back to the public, that here's what we learned.
So the question is, if we don't have the shall, we can say, no, we think these are the options or the ones, and do we have any way of saying, no, we want that again, and we want these 3 options? If we don't have the shall.
So, yes, because they must incorporate our commentary. It's unequivocal.
My guess is their first pass would be like 8 or 10 options that we would start narrowing down. They're not going to come with just 3, is my guess.
Your concern about the word shall in this case is that if we have a strong word like shall, I think if I'm hearing you right, your suggestion was that we were going to have to wordsmith this to death because we were giving very strong direction about what they had to do. And so we need to specify it. Whereas if we say should, we can include language like this, but then back off the idea that we have to lock it in completely. And we can lock it in later with it.
Or clarify.
Or clarify later with it.
So what do we want to say?
Yes, we need to come to some consensus around a sentence here. What was our last proposed
At
draft?
least one option should include renovation, addition, and partial demolition.
Consensus on that is an okay thing, or do folks still feel very strongly around the word around shall, should?
I really think that,
Shall.
you know, I think it should be shall. I think that's part of what we need to produce.
I hear what you're saying, but then if we're saying demolition, what if someone comes back and says, we can do this without any demolition, and then you've said you shall include these 3 things in that option?
That when comes when we put the slash bar, it's not the and. Instead of renovation slash
And, well,
addition.
and or,
And or.
Yeah.
because the slash is, to me.
Yeah.
A slash is grammatically ambiguous at best, I think.
Yeah, you
Okay.
can
Use
use
the
words,
legal
use and or.
interpretation of the
Yeah.
slash.
Let's say include renovation, addition, and/or partial demolition. Right? Because that makes it clear you're asking them to do some combination of those things.
At least one option shall include renovation, addition, and or partial demolition.
Yes.
Okay, great.
To go with the shall.
At the end of item 2, I threw in an item G, mostly just to kind of throw it out there. We do not include any kind of like hazmat requests as part of elements. I don't know if we want to or not.
So we've included asbestos, we've got the lead report that goes with it, on public record already. There conceivably would be PCBs, but that's gonna be low grade,
Until
or later.
Do the demolition, right?
But it would be later, so I would suggest, other than the Ahero information, we don't include.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Happy with that. At the end,
So, but the hazmat stuff, we're doing air quality testing for that, but not a full hazardous material analysis to see the
So,
material in the building, that, in their undisturbed state.
so we have taken physical samples of the substrate, the floors, ceilings, et cetera. That's in the Ahero report. I believe there's lead paint in there with it as well. The indoor air quality is what is airborne, not necessarily what's
In place.
in place.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So there's a very comprehensive study that was already done.
Right.
I want to say a couple years
Last
ago.
year.
Last year.
Can you send that to us?
I did
Oh,
the April 3rd Ahero report, and it's on the facility site for the district.
We should get it on the website too. Along with the roof study is not on the website either, so.
at the end of this section, originally the last sentence read, all options will consider net zero energy designs. There was a suggestion to say, all options should reflect the town's commitment to green construction and energy efficiency. We're gonna get to this later, but as long as we're talking about net zero, there is a warrant on the next town meeting article to amend the current net zero energy article, so that remains in flux for us. I have no problem making the change, I just wanted to throw it in.
I like the way that you listed them later under local bylaws and the ones that hadn't, been passed yet, or certified rather, I should say. I think that makes it really clear that this has to be on the radar and something to watch for.
They have to be mindful of whatever change or non-change that happens.
So I would, are you asking for an opinion on these 2 sentences that are sitting here?
Yeah, I mean, one's the original, one's a suggested change. We don't need both, but
I don't really love, to me, going from all options will consider net zero energy designs to all options reflect the town's commitment to green construction and energy efficiency is a significant watering down of the first sentence. I mean, a little too much for my tastes. There's got to be some third alternative, right? I mean, especially because later in the document, as you mentioned, similarly, I liked the listing of the current bylaw and the proposed bylaw on the warrant. So I thought that did a good job of explaining to folks what was on the horizon.
Do we need these phrases here, considering that we are measuring the bylaws afterwards? I don't
That's
think we
my
need-
question at this point, yeah.
Yeah.
not really.
I think since we talked about it later.
Then I might strike, rather than trying to figure out whether you do a strong sentence or a weak sentence, I might just strike this and leave the other part in. which forces the respondent to look at the bylaws and say, oh, I get it, they're doing this.
I have one question, though. How likely is it that this won't be certified?
I have no idea.
What do you mean?
That the pass, the
During the process of this.
yeah, that the net zero, the article won't be certified.
So we have no opinion regarding the likelihood of town meeting making decisions that may impact the charter results later.
Well, I think she's talking about the Attorney General.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Attorney General
On the
filed in
net
China.
zero bylaw.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, on a certain level, this isn't an issue, this is something that's important to everybody at the table and everybody in town. I think that the designer should be required to work to it, assuming that the Attorney General is going to certify the result and
So conversely,
Yeah.
my concern would be if we struck those two sentences and then the net zero wasn't certified,
Wow.
then we wouldn't be covered at all.
oh,
Right.
yes.
That's my concern.
And I will say that going with a weaker sentence there, the second sentence, does mean that if the bylaws don't pass, we're not still obligating this person to put a photovoltaic farm out at Fort River. We can consider other less expensive
Other ways
green
to
measures.
address it, yeah.
And then I think the other important thing too is to remember if we do go through the state process that it will be, LEED or some other green certification process that we'll be going through. So in that stance, I don't mind the weaker sentence.
So I feel like finding, at the same place we talk about, we need to rank construction estimates. I feel like we need to say in here, we need some analysis of the green credentials of any of these options. And so I don't know, is that somewhere else? Is this related? So where this is, where we talk about, we need a cost estimate.
The cost estimate
The cost estimate's
is
discussed a lot on this page actually, and I have some comments on that. I don't want to diverge into anything like this.
We should resolve this
Yep.
first.
So, regarding the green and the construction, this process is gonna take 23 weeks, that's that's the timeline. Do we know a timeline for, the certification of the bylaws? Because presumably it might not happen before, but since they are on the docs, they should comply with those bylaws. It's not the designers knowing that we have this on the timeline, even though we most likely won't get certified before then. But thinking of the future, they should be working, assuming that the bylaws are going to be certified.
I would disagree if we don't have to make them make a zero energy building. I don't want to make them make a zero energy building. It's expensive. It's uncharted territory. I
It'll
don't
skew the
want
results.
to. I don't want to obligate us to do that.
So, so the way it's written right now, we're saying all options have to include zero energy. To me, it would make more sense to amend it in some way that all of them have to be committed to, green construction energy efficiency. And one option could be net zero energy. By the way, let me just be candid, because we're on camera, it's a public meeting. I like talking plainly, I don't like beating around the bush about stuff. If we kill right now doing any analysis of net zero, there are gonna be a lot of people in this town who are gonna come after our work and just gut us like fish for doing that. So it may not be feasible, it may not be desirable, the idea that we're gonna, and I know we're not saying we're not gonna look into it, but kind of like unlike the partial renovation thing, where I'm kind of confident we're gonna end up with an option that is renovation as well as one that's new construction. I feel like we're crossing a threshold here where if we're making a vote decision right now to back off doing an analysis of net zero, then we are probably more likely making a decision down the road that if the bylaw is struck down, we're not even gonna look into it. And I think that's a big mistake. Part of the point of this process is to get information to the town and to the school committee, but to the town as a whole, on what their options look like, get back the best information we can, including, by the way, if the information in the process is, I mean, you could say something like evaluate net zero energy or include that. Because, I mean, if the information comes back that based on current construction methods and things like that, the cost is like way out of line, and that some of the things that Chris Riddle and others are arguing in town, saying, no, we can find ways to pay for itself, aren't accurate based on the best judgment of our consultants, we can give that information back to the town. If we drop it and we don't even look into it, then we're going to lose complete credibility in terms of what we're doing. So I mean, maybe there needs to be a different language, but I'm just saying it's going to be a real problem if we decide we're just excising this out of the work that we're doing.
Yeah, I can't imagine taking it out entirely, and I think it's gonna be like anything else the designer's gonna have to explore. There's gonna be a range. I actually think for a new building, it's more achievable. Sorry, a tough word, but there are more options for achieving it than in a renovation. And so to take it out again denies.
Well,
the
this
ability
is
to look
why
at
I'm saying
right.
the all options part seems to be very problematic.
Right.
To say an option doesn't seem to be as problematic, even if it's very expensive to do. Sorry, I'll stop.
Well, what does the word consider mean? To me, it means like we ran a quick analysis on this one option of renovation, and we've looked at it and said, gee, to get net zero would be like, and we're not going to do it. So to me, I would like at least that's them saying, holy crap, that would be really hard to do it as part of a renovation. I want them to tell us
Right.
that. So when we say we'll consider, how
that
heavy is
strong?
that word?
Yeah.
Because to me, I do want them to consider I want them to think about what it would take in a renovation project to make it net zero, and I want them to tell me that it's not feasible, or it is feasible. But I don't want them to not even ask the question on a renovation project.
Okay. What if it were something like the last sentence, all options should, with energy, blah, blah, and then add on, all options will also consider net energy design strategies, or net energy strategies, or strategies to address net zero. Because then we get the feedback on all of the options of whether that's an applicable thing.
So are we looking for a hard number? It's going to cost us X percent or X $million or?
Well, what I would see is like in the cost estimate narrative, it would be like 1A and 1B. 1A would be, whatever they are describing, and maybe 1B is what it would take to reach net zero on that design. And then 2A and 2B, what it would be like this, and then if we were to achieve net zero, what that might take.
So that's all.
That's more the long approach, and you're getting a spectrum. I think I would build what you say, Eric, and I stick with the all. And we were not going to build from the end result of this. We want to see the full options, and I think the more information, the better.
That's the key point, is that you want to, even if some of the options end up being not, the sticker price is too high, the town now knows it, right? They have good information to make that judgment. That's what we're looking for.
So,
Part of what we're looking for.
So the current net zero bylaw that is not certified yet
Right.
includes new construction and additions, period.
Over $1 million,
Over $1 million.
which is basically period for this.
Right. There is another warrant article coming through that, we don't know, but I'm fairly, that does not address anything in addition to new construction and additions. So, to your point, Heather, do we need them to spend time and money and tell us this is what it would cost to get to net zero for other options? I think the answer would be no, because that's not even going to be on the table. It's not part of any of the net zero bylaws that are being proposed. So what you're saying, Eric, is that we want them to give us options and tell us what different things would cost, but do we need them to give us what net zero would be for each and every option?
I don't know how in-depth we needed, but I do think we need the designer to weigh in on the feasibility of whether a renovation project can be net zero, because I think that's an important thing when the community is having this discussion about whether do we pursue a renovation or we pursue new construction. One of the major differences is that I anticipate that one is not going to be feasible to do net zero with, and the other one is. And I think that's my assumption, and I think we need more than an assumption to go back to the public with.
My thinking on it had been that getting advice on the relative burden of making a renovation net zero is probably relatively cheap advice to get, because someone's going to look at that project and tell you all sorts of reasons as a practical matter why it might not be realistic to do. What I was trying to do is build into the idea that even if the bylaw got struck down, I would still like to see one option that is more advanced and more developed, and undoubtedly it is new construction, that includes some evaluation of building net zero, so that we could come back to the town with information on what it would cost to do a net zero building, regardless of whether there's a town bylaw. And by the way, that still may, actually, like Heather said, that even may lead people to saying, wow, that sounds unachievable for us for the price tag, and we'd rather go some hybrid of, highly efficient but not exact. I mean, I don't know. We don't know. We'll find out.
Sorry, I didn't want to speak out of turn, so I just looked it up really quickly. And one of the main criteria of net zero is that we don't use any combustibles, and that all of the power is generated on site, which for a renovation project would mean a complete replacement of the physical plant, which
It's a very in-depth renovation, yes.
right, which might be the thing that pushes that out of the realm of feasibility, which
Sure.
is what Heather was talking.
I mean, I think I would go towards the firmer sentence, the shorter sentence, but maybe phrase it more as a direction to the designer about what we want, and say that all options, the designer shall present net energy design analysis on all options. Did you say all options twice? I think I just did.
Yeah. I like the word analysis.
Yeah.
But I
Because
would
it's more than consider. I think consider is too soft.
I'm sorry.
Can we say that all options shall consider the current bylaws not yet approved, so that they have to at least go with as the bylaws are standing right now, and to satisfy part of the net zero?
All options will analyze net zero energy design. I'm just trying to get through this thing.
Yeah, no, I think that's good, but I also think there's other parts to green construction than net zero. So that does not cover us for things like
Healthy materials.
the gamut. So I don't think it's an either or here. I think you need both.
Sure.
Yeah. Net zero and.
So if we started with the second sentence, and then after efficiency, and will consider net zero energy design analysis. So then all options is at the front and we're covered.
And energy efficiency, and will consider net zero energy design analysis.
Or what did you put instead of consider, Jonathan? I don't remember.
Roll that recording back.
And will
It was something like
Provide analysis.
provide analysis.
Why are these down here instead of like include the following elements? Why isn't it in one of these two?
Because one is
Bulleted
from
list.
one version of the draft and one is from your SUNY suggestion, and they weren't matched together properly, I guess.
so this would be option G.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Any more comments, questions before we move on?
Oh my gosh, I do, unfortunately.
Okay.
Not on the sentence. First sentence, comments made by, which I think it should be feedback and direction provided by. Where are we? Top of the page.
Paragraph 1.
Paragraph 1 presents at least 3 viable options. second line, revise each to reflect feedback and direction provided by the building committee.
Yes.
Yes.
And then strike "and the community." Because the community gives us feedback, we interpret and amend it as we see appropriate, and we provide the direction to the design team.
Feedback and direction are much better.
And then there's a lot of town and the community in this, like A, in consultation with the town and the community. And I think that all those town and community should be replaced by committee. Because I think they shouldn't be
With the
taking
filter.
direction from anybody aside from this committee.
That's true.
Replace town and the community with committee, or just replace the community with committee?
Town and
Town
community.
and
You got it. All right.
And that's also at the 1D, last 3 words. E has town twice in it. And then my last one is a clarification on the process. The final evaluation of alternatives will be presented to the community as a final report, period. During the cost estimating phase, these will be reconciled by the third-party estimator. So that, like, that reconciliation doesn't come at the point of the final report, it comes earlier in the process. With the reconciled cost estimate to be included in the final report. So I don't know how we want to say that.
Okay, what you just said, you repeat it.
With the, so in the final report will include the reconciled cost estimate.
Okay, so can you read that, like, how would you have the whole paragraph read this, I guess? That's okay. Started writing in that.
The final exactly what you had, the final evaluation of the term is presented to committee as a final report, which will include cost estimate, or reconciled cost estimate.
Which will include a reconciled cost estimate.
But by a third party estimate.
But yeah, I think that cost estimation reconciliation with the third party is clarified further in here.
Okay.
On the next page, which begins the required scope, I have made no changes here, except at the very end of this section before local bylaws, I have added that highlighted paragraph. This was in here at one time, and I think it was in here at one time and it was taken out because possibly about concerns about our mandate and that we weren't supposed to go beyond feasibility. I've kind of put it back just as a consideration, but do we want to cut ourselves off there or not?
I like it. Why wouldn't we want to reserve reference?
Yeah, it obligates us in no way, but if we don't say it, we cannot do it. So, okay, great.
So, if we don't have it, what's the implication if we don't have it?
If you don't have it, we cannot do that. We cannot just continue on to the next phase with the
You have to go out and
selected.
do it again.
Yeah, we have to start.
Which is probably what we're gonna do.
I was gonna say, it's still
Close to
sunset.
sunset, but
Right.
I had struck it out again, but I'm good with that logic.
And I don't know what the town meeting schedule is, but I guess it's possible that we might know the results of the Article 29 of this current warrant before publication. If we do and there's no objections, I would, if there's no objections, I would update the current status of that article, but.
So nothing in a town meeting is final until it is dissolved. So it would have to be at the end of the entire town.
And it will not be resolved before the second, so.
And honestly, I just wouldn't worry about that.
All
I mean,
right.
I think that's not worth the time to revise and stuff.
I have 2 edits for this page. The second sentence of the first paragraph. So third line, town decides to, I think you meant proceed.
Yeah, probably.
And then third paragraph, I just want to reorder some of those services. So I think fourth line, after basic environmental consultation, the graphics, lighting design, and acoustics. And then skipping skipping until educational consultants, and then skipping until library, media center, and kitchen space, and then skipping to energy evaluations. Should be added at the end after a may include.
Okay, so it would go basic environmental consultation,
Information technology, infrastructure, data and communication,
educational consultants,
any specialty consultants for sustainable design, code consultants, accessibility, and other design consulting services incidental and required to fulfill the project, and other design services may include graphics, light design, acoustics, educational consultants, library media.
Okay, so the paragraph will read, basic services include, but are not limited to, verification of existing record information, including building dimensions, details, and general existing conditions, cost estimating, architecture, civil, sanitary, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, structural site planning, and landscape architecture, basic environmental consultation, educational consultants? No. What comes after basic environmental?
Information technology.
Information
infrastructure.
technology, infrastructure, data, and communications?
Yes.
Okay. Educational consultants.
Any specialty consultants.
Okay.
Yep.
Any specialty consultants for sustainable design, library, media,
Code consultants.
code consultants, and accessibility.
Yes.
Um,
And then,
and then energy evaluations, or no?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
And then,
And other design and consulting services incidental and practical project goals, such as
right, which
graphics,
may
lighting,
include-
design, acoustics,
Mhm.
educational consultants,
Mhm.
library, media center, kitchen space,
Mhm.
energy evaluations.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything else on this page?
Yes, I'm sorry.
So that's an edit, by the way.
Yeah.
But what's the difference between any, so when you say any specialty consultants, why is that not such as, may include such as?
Why did I want to move those ones to the end?
Well, just, it says,
No, it's any specialty
Include.
consultants for sustainable design. That,
why the word any
Entire.
there? Because it's sort of
Oh, yeah, well, you need that
The
one
word
word,
any?
yeah.
any, because it's,
This list was copied from, I think, MSBA.
can we strike any? Because, do we want specialty consult, include but are not limited to? So you've got, so you've made a hierarchy of like, these are the ones we want, and then you can have these other ones that are, and to me, the any specialty consultants reads as a,
The demarcation?
yeah, or like, it should be in this, if you're saying it's any specialty consultants, that's the ones you may have.
I just see any specialty consultants for sustainable design, like you said, maybe maybe it's a meat consultant, maybe it's a chips consultant.
Oh, I
maybe it's
see.
maybe it's the net zero, maybe
mhm.
it's a building envelope consultant, like there are so many different ways to parse a sustainability
Got it.
consultant that I feel like it kind of covers that.
Yep. Not whether you have a sustainability consultant, just the
It's
kind.
not whether
it's
it's at
the-
all, it's the
right.
type.
Specialty consultants. Well, I think you would just say specialty consultants for sustainable design, and then we say,
Okay, so
and then you can
still
say
strike that.
IE, for example, the mass chips.
E.g.
Or EG, sorry.
More clear, actually.
And any can stay.
No, any goes away.
No, it goes away.
Any goes
That's
away.
the point.
Okay.
Last one, sorry. So, 4, the one line, extra compensation and reimbursable expenses, just because extra compensation is the name of that section or article. That's it.
I have a comment now on the local bylaws paragraph. You list the 3 bylaws, 2 that have been approved, but the other one, and you said 2 local bylaws. Maybe we should change it.
The third one isn't a bylaw yet.
No, but the applicant should be aware of local bylaws. Scrap the 2 and then it's
Sure.
easier.
Okay. It's still fine. Okay. Anything else on this page? Okay, so, some major reorganization on this one. So originally, this part of this page that had all these bullets was a table, and I found that table, which was copied from the MSBA format, almost impossible to make sense of. So I had made it into a list. And Maria pointed out in the draft that we haven't updated the numbers in this list to match the.
Yes.
So these tables might seem redundant, but I think the intent here is the first part is a sort of preliminary schedule, and the second part is what they must do within a certain amount of time. So they overlap, but I wouldn't say they're redundant. But we will need to reconcile the numbers here. So I'll open up the whole page, I guess, to discuss.
Regarding the reconciliation, do we have the time that we have time to go, because it says here within 2 weeks and afterwards within 4 weeks. That includes the time that we have to talk to them and meet and give them feedback, or how do they go in between?
Basically, this is a series of tasks that they have to do after a certain triggering event. They have to attend a kickoff meeting within 2 weeks, and obviously we have to accommodate that. They have to have a preliminary program within 4 weeks of the contract signing. So I guess, yes, it does include all the back and forth and coordination between the groups.
I have a question, just because I'm not sure how it normally works with the town in signing contracts. I know it takes us a really long time to sign contracts, and would we be holding it up with the execution of the contract, or could we go with a memorandum of intent, a letter of intent?
I mean,
Town contracts go a little quicker. I don't.
they go as quickly as town personnel are comfortable proceeding. This has been created by a town meeting article. I can't see a
So
reason
there's
to hold
no-
it up.
Okay.
And I don't know that I'd be comfortable giving someone a notice to proceed without it signed, without a fully
fair enough.
executed contract.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
And we're including, yes, the contract, the sample contract
The sample-
as an attachment. So
Sample
they should
contract
have
is
some sense of it.
attachment B. So if they have any suggested changes to the contract, that's actually supposed to be part of the proposal. Is there any, so contract negotiation shouldn't really take any time, because they're supposed to
Right.
speak now for a little bit. He's quite early on in the process.
So, did you say earlier that, I understand that they say different things, but there needed to be an exercise in reconciling the number of weeks in the top table with the bottom list? I mean, if we're approving it today, do we need to do that right now? Or are they consistent enough with one of those?
I don't know, probably not. It's probably something we can, the task force, I guess, could fix if it came to it.
I mean, I guess if we're all clear on what do all of these things mean, because there's some, maybe it's specific terms in contract world or architectural world, but some of these, just, I don't know what they mean.
Right.
So,
As Anthony said, the piece at the top is kind of an overall schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we want to edit the verbiage as needed, and the upper paragraph, upper sections will be reconciled with the lower.
I'm still a little confused about the difference between the two, and
So the first one, which I populated those numbers from Christine's kind of project budget overview, is just kind of an estimated total duration and how that might break down. It's not, this first part does not obligate either party in any way. The second list does obligate the contractor to deliver certain things within a certain amount of time. And if they deliver, and like if we hold up the execution of the contract, and that means that this preliminary option takes longer, that doesn't hurt them. But once we've executed the contract, they have to deliver certain things within 2, 4, 6 weeks. And if we don't approve their preliminary evaluation, that extends the timeline, but it doesn't hurt them. But if we approve the preliminary evaluation and they don't give us their preferred solutions, they're in violation of the contract.
so the top is kind of like gestalt, and the bottom is contractually obligations.
I would say that.
but we need to reconcile the items. There are more things listed on the bottom table.
Yeah, I don't think
than
it,
on
I don't think it'll be one-to-one.
And there's different words used too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are we saying that that if, you know, I don't think any of this is controversial necessarily. I think what we're saying that it will be reconciled prior to issuance.
If you're comfortable leaving the task force to do that, we can do that before publication.
I think we should probably talk a little bit about, can all of the evaluations that need to happen get done in either of these timeframes? You know, can we get structural, geotechnical, systems analysis, landscape, environmental, can we get all that done in a time, can they get it done for us in a way that comports with this, especially the second list? And what is a preliminary program in that second list? What does that refer to?
Is that the same as preliminary option development?
The preliminary program is the list of spaces, basically, what's gonna go in, you know.
6
I mean,
classrooms.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
it's, I mean, in
500
a lot of ways,
square
it's
feet
what's in the
Yeah.
school now, plus the
Yeah.
things we need to have in pre-K rooms. And they're gonna have to generate that, we're gonna have to comment on it. But
So,
But essentially, after those, the preliminary program is within 4 weeks, and then we are giving 2 more extra weeks to develop alternatives.
I don't think that's an unreasonable turnaround for the initial things they're gonna present to us. That doesn't mean that process is gonna take 2 weeks, because we're gonna have to find the time to meet. It's, you know, it's the upper one, to me, that might need a little more spacing, just knowing the difficulty of being able to meet.
But in the bottom line, we say development of alternatives within 6 weeks of execution of contract, so they have to deliver by 6 weeks.
Right. But if we delay it, they're under no penalty. We want to make sure they keep a pace of our ability to approve things. Does that make sense?
yeah, but I just don't, I'm trying to figure out how they can, within 6 weeks of signing a contract,
Yeah.
have accomplished all of the evaluations of the existing conditions and done everything and have those results
Right.
in order to
We-
start talking
We
about
can give them more
options.
time. I mean,
Yeah, that's what I'm asking,
Yeah.
like what, you know, that, I don't know, it seems tight.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the
Yeah.
question that I have too, because we don't even mention the development of the program up above. And so we're thinking that they could work on the program concurrent to developing options, because to me, you always do the program first and then you do the options, so.
Yeah, on the top part, we have the preliminary option development 5 weeks, the other options as directed another 5 weeks. So we have 10 weeks before they have to refine the options. And here, I think we have only 6 weeks on the bottom.
but on the top, it's also assuming that there'll need to be some time for them to come back when they're ready to present to us. And sometimes we manage to meet every 2 weeks, sometimes we don't. I guess I don't mind making any adjustments here. I think we should talk about how much time they really need to take. But this is kind of an overarching schedule. And I have to say, I have, done projects that didn't have this hard-boiled language at the bottom. This is "thou shalt do this in 4 weeks." I understand why the town would want it, because we do want to make sure that they don't just kind of drag us out when we want this in a timely way. We don't want this a year from now. We want this information in the fall. But why don't we attack this one piece at a time? I should just note that we're at 7:30. I don't want to rush us, but we may not get to everything on our calendars at the pace we're going.
To make it even more complicated discussion, thinking of like the public engagement and
It's
what we want, how, we've talked about having forums, or in the latest draft that I circulated before this meeting, I suggested one sort of beginning, middle, and end.
Yep.
And I don't know if that needs, I was kind of breezing through here looking for deliverables again. Like, I mean, these, do we need to throw in the language for like preliminary evaluation alternatives and presentation within 4 weeks? Like, and then, like, so we're cueing them, they're gonna have to prepare. I mean, I think they would, but,
Yeah.
And again, like this is the only time I've seen final report, but, so I don't know if like the feasibility study shall include present at least 3 viable options for the project and hand us a binder of it at the end. Like, I don't know where to throw in the language about like,
The final evaluation of alternatives will be presented as a final report.
there we go.
That's in.
Oh, right there, at the bottom of all that, perfect, yeah. So do we need to say something, I mean, I feel like we need to have the other discussion too, to throw it in here. Would now be a good time to maybe swing over to the public engagement, just portion of that, so we can talk about that, so that can get baked into this?
Yeah.
I think it has to, as it
Yeah.
is, this requires no public engagement beyond interfacing with this committee.
And I thought we had said earlier that we were gonna put in, along with final report, presentation.
I thought there were, I thought I had read presentation.
I thought last time we met, we talked about it, there was a
Yeah.
place where we inserted the requirement that we don't just want a final report, we also want a presentation.
I guess I read that word presented to the committee on that previous page, on page 3.
Will be
as-
presented to the
As an
committee
actual presentation, I may I'm reading into it too much,
as
but,
a final report. Yeah, that could be presented, could just be, here you go.
yeah.
Well, I just think if we're gonna say we want a final report, we're anticipating getting some sort of deck of slides with an overview, we should say we're expecting a final report and a deck of, PowerPoint presentation or something.
Right.
So maybe right at this end here, we say like,
May I suggest the final evaluation of alternatives will be given to the committee as a final report and a public presentation?
I mean, this very topic is, that's right. I'm that. My brain was moving on.
and then when do we bake in like, do we think having 3 milestones where we explicitly interface with the public is too much, too little?
I just wrote down 3, so I think that that's good. Because if you just sort of jump up to the generic schedule, like after the preliminary option development, that should be a public presentation, right? And then we would glean, feedback from the community. We could synthesize it ourselves and give the designers direction, which they would then develop over a amount of time. I think the refine options with cost estimates, that should be a public presentation so that the money is clearly transparent along with what these things are costing and why.
Yep.
And then another presentation at the end, which we worked.
And the more we talk about this, I'm feeling strongly that the more contractual schedule, the bottom of a consultant doing it in a certain period of time, is not compatible with what might be a fairly open-ended public engagement process. I don't know what folks from the town side would think about it, but I would think about kind of Xing that whole thing out, focusing more on the overall schedule. But that's just me talking. Okay, Kristen.
I hate to contradict you.
Feel free.
But I like having it because it's, as Anthony's described, it's triggers, right? It's once you have direction, you need to have this done within this amount of time. Once we've signed this, you have to do it within this amount of time. It's really, it defines the start point, it doesn't define the end point. I do think we should need to more closely align the words and how they're described with what's above.
the only starting trigger is signing the contract at
No.
this point.
No,
There's three
proceeding
things
to
that,
development, we have to provide them direction to proceed with development.
right, but there's, it's not a clearly defined, like, and after, as soon as we do this, this
lot
is your
of-
next deliverable.
Sometimes the words are like upon written direction from owner, upon written direction from committee.
Yeah, I think we want to include that, but I think we want to be clear when we're moving on to a new topic for the
milestone.
design.
But I think that's a better approach. And here, a lot of the language at the top is around the execution of the contract. And based on what you were saying earlier, that may end up being, voided early on in the like we don't get our meetings together, where, it takes a little longer to get the analysis than we thought. And all of a sudden, the language it says within X number of weeks of the contract execution is null, essentially, right? Because it's already way past that, so what does it even mean any longer? I think having within weeks of certain milestones that are built into the structure above makes sense to me. Of saying, look, once we give you direction on X, then you have 4 weeks to get back to us on Y.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes enormous sense to me, because then you're getting some discipline built into that.
So we want 3 public meetings? Well, I guess all I mean is
Public
three
presentations.
meetings where we'll have like an organized, come out and see what we're doing, presentation with, okay. And are we good with where Christine highlighted in the process? I'm thinking.
I had maybe thrown out the first one as just to introduce the architect even before the preliminary design development. I mean, I don't know. My first gut was just like, here are the architects, here are their credentials, this is what we're embarking upon.
I think we could do that in a press release. We don't need like a
Yeah.
meet and greet.
So can we go over what our 3 proposed meeting times, topics were?
A public presentation after the preliminary option development. And I'm looking at that top schedule.
Yes.
Public presentation after refine options with cost estimates. And public presentation after the finalized options with recommendations.
Okay. So what I will do is I will add rows after each of those items that say public presentation to be scheduled at mutual convenience of designer and committee. Okay. And that's not gonna knock our costs up or create any cost concerns.
I think coming out for a meeting will be one of the.
Yeah.
Attendance, number of people they're gonna bring.
Yeah.
But if we really want to engage at the big major milestones, I think it's
That's
a
the way to do it.
requirement.
Okay. The last item I have on this page is the pre-submission conference, which I don't know where I got these times. I had it as 11 to 1, but apparently that's not, school
That's
doesn't
too
get
early.
out.
Yeah.
So, 2 to 4
Yes.
is probably what
Yeah.
I want to say.
School's usually out by 12:30.
Only 120, but you gotta give them a chance to.
Yeah, to get out.
Buses
Yeah.
out and everything.
But there will still be after school here, and everyone will still have to be escorted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No one will be on the school. Yeah. All right, so 2 to 4. Hopefully not any longer.
So sorry to go back, so you're gonna reconcile the times with the actual.
At the first paragraph of the page before we move on, meetings with, at the bottom of the top paragraph, meetings with the town and others, meeting with the committee and others.
Yeah.
You'd almost just word search it for town and replace it with committee. There's 2 of those in here.
And we like requirements, not estimates, yeah. I'm just looking at it really.
Yeah, I forget who changed that, but yeah.
So we are keeping both then.
I think so. I think they serve good functions.
And so, do we want to be specific about when we have execution of contract, and then they're gonna deliver certain things after that, and then we're gonna hit another point, and we have to say, and this is the point where we're starting, and now you have to deliver again. So what is that point? What is the wording that we want to use?
On written direction of owner or committee.
Committee. Yeah.
And that's going to be after development of all, after they hit the third bullet point on the bottom.
Upon written direction of the committee, that's what they want for bullet points 4 through 7, basically. Not that they're numbered.
But then,
I will say that the standard contract kind of defines it defines the organization and the director of that organization, or the organization will obviously be the committee. I'm assuming the director of that will be our chair, so also our chair actually convey that.
Write a letter.
Okay. Anything else on this page?
No, but I'm going back down.
Okay.
The final evaluation of alternatives shall be presented to the committee as a final report. Are we being redundant do we need to repeat the public presentations stuff over here? So it's, the feasibility shall include 3 public presentations.
Which page are you on?
Previous one,
Page
final
3.
evaluation at the bottom of your.
The feasibility study shall include the following, it's kind of weird. But near the bottom is the final evaluation of alternatives will be presented to the committee as a final report and public presentation. So that's kind of our one public presentation. But if we want 2 more, is this the place to say it? Or is it sort of just enough to say in the milestones?
Part of me wants to leave it to hash out what's going to actually be in those as we get to talking to the designer, but I can leave that up to them. We can discuss. I'm open to other ideas.
I'm okay as it is, where we have the other presentations kind of in the timeline, suggest that we expect a total of 3. I think I would pick that up if I was responding here. Okay.
So if the task force is gonna be working on hashing this out, the number of weeks, I just want the committee to
Look
make
at,
sure that,
yeah.
that the whole committee weighs in now. Do we think that these are reasonable timeframes? Do we need more?
I would trust the task force to know, because the people who've worked on these before and know what response times are for this type of thing.
So you have to weigh in now, because once
Yeah.
we go do our thing.
Right,
I don't
go
think
do our
so.
thing, yeah.
I'm honestly fine, because my assumption is if we're changing the bottom number of weeks to be triggered by direction of the committee, then and the top one isn't actually like mandated in contract, like no project ever gets done on time. And so if we need an extra week for something, my guess is we're gonna find an
Yeah.
extra week.
I just wanna make sure that the whole committee's like, if we,
We're
when
gonna make
we
a
get
decision,
there,
right?
we're gonna be flipping some numbers around, and it might not be 23 weeks, might not be 24. I just want
Sure.
everybody, I want your permission to do so.
What makes sense?
I wouldn't make it shorter.
No, I don't think it's gonna get any shorter.
We're gonna slice and dice that schedule.
my concern is
Yep.
if it's too short, people might get scared. If they say in 5 weeks, there's no way we can deliver in 5 weeks, we don't even tackle it. So it has to be something that is realistic and doesn't scare.
And we're getting,
So if it's 26 weeks, I think it would be better to give leeway to people to say we have more flexibility. I don't think the shorter is.
Alright, that's part 1. Part 2, proposal submission terms and requirements. That's all boilerplate. I don't think we need to talk about that part. Okay.
You'll get out that.
No, I'm only talking about items 1 through 21.
Okay.
I definitely want to talk about additional submission
Okay,
instructions.
that's where I'm at.
Alright, because I just kind of made this up, but it was kind of an idea of what we could do under additional submission instructions.
Okay.
Where I
to
Yeah.
additional
Yeah.
submission.
Right. So I said they should submit 1 bound copy, 1 USB flash drive, and 6 unbound copies. I'm also thinking maybe we don't even need the unbound copies.
Yeah,
We can all
that was my thought.
possibly-
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll ask for one bound copy of record and one flash drive, and I will distribute
Yes.
files to everyone. See, we're green already. The parts that are in dark highlight represent some reorganization, so.
I have a quick question. So, on the outside of the package, but in the inside is a sealed, is a double blind, or is it, the submission is on the outside is the name of the company, but it's not a blind? I don't know how you.
So we want them in inner and outer envelopes, so basically if they have the submission, they put it in a nice envelope, and they put it in a mailing envelope. And both envelopes need to be labeled, so I can open the mailing envelope and store it. But I do not no one opens the inner envelope until the evaluation committee is assembled.
Okay, so, but it's not a blind,
Yeah, I mean, there's no prices.
It's not like a competition.
okay.
Yeah. And once they're due, we can open them. Since there's no prices, there's no danger of contaminating anyone's information in that way. So the part here, this dark highlight application is supposed to be accompanied, I think, depending on if you printed earlier, if you have a copy here, it's in a different place. But this paragraph, application is supposed to be accompanied by a concise cover letter. That was somewhere else, and I moved it here because it really belongs here, but I wonder if we even care to tell them what they have to have in their cover letter. That's from the MSBA.
I like the concise part.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people
And
will
they'll want
spend
it
pages
to-
and pages, redoing exactly what they're going to say elsewhere in their
Similarly, that dark part at the after item 16 on the next page was also moved because it belongs here, but it was found somewhere else. We've looked at this section a lot, other than what I moved to. So I don't know if there's any points here.
What's a standard designer application form?
That is attachment A. It's right there on the table. It is mandated by the state. No, that's the contract. The landscape.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the
I don't
landscape
think I
one.
opened that one up, I'm sorry.
Okay, it's mandated by the state, so we can't change it if we want to.
And will everyone reading this know what that is?
Yeah.
Yeah, and and it's going to be included in the packet. They will be able to miss it. Yeah. Okay, fee proposal just tells them what's coming after they're selected, so it's all standard. Part 3, which is really the last part that we have to spend any time on. We have.
Sorry, I just have one addition.
Okay.
Also, it's the last page of that section. Also include hourly billing rates to be used for future additional services if requested. I just feel
So-
like the
so-
invoicing optional. Confusing.
That's true, yeah. Because we haven't defined any optional additional services.
Right.
So what was your suggestion?
Right, so we don't have any defined ad services at the moment, so I think if we just strike if invoicing optional and put in for future additional services if requested.
Future as in not part of this contract.
Right,
Future
currently
as in
anticipated,
Not
right.
part of this
not
scope.
identified under the scope of the contract.
But included in this contract.
But included in this
Yes.
word. Like so, 3 months from now, we decide, oh, we really want X, then they should give us a proposal for X under billing rates that we already know, so that we can proceed with that proposal, rather than,
Which would be in addition to.
which is an
150.
additional service.
Yeah.
It just identifies their billing rates up front, so we know what we would be paying in the future if we ask for more help.
Which we may never do, but if we do, we have the information.
Part 2. Okay. So part 3, minimum qualifications. I don't think anything here has changed since the first time we discussed them. I rearranged the MWBE language at the bottom, but it's unchanged. Although it used to be found kind of, I think we cut and pasted wrong and it was in 2 places, now it's in 1. MWBE language is not mandatory for us because we are not receiving state funding, but I think there was a desire to keep it, so, yes. Okay. selection process has undergone some slight rearrangement. The first thing I'd like to talk about under selection process is reviewed by a selection board comprised of the committee entire, certain subcommittee to be decided now, later. I talked to the town manager. He will sign off on whatever this committee decides to do for an evaluation. Subcommittee, full committee.
Can we just say by a selection board? I mean, do we have to specify who it's going to be comprised of?
Whether it's all of us or some subset.
You don't have to. I'd encourage you to. You don't have to.
I think we're gonna wanna have it, unless we can quickly come to consensus, I think we're gonna wanna have a consensus, a conversation about who would sit in that committee if it's not all of us.
I vote for all of us.
I have no issue
Second.
with that.
We're gonna drive ourselves completely insane with this many people on a selection board.
I guess the,
What's your ideal number?
3, 4, 5.
Second.
So why don't we just strike the words comprised of?
Exactly.
Yes.
Issue this
And then we
thing
can
and
figure this
discuss
out later.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's where I was going with that.
because I can imagine a substantial conversation on that side.
Yeah.
I tend to be in the wider group, but maybe we can find some compromise. I'd like to spend the time to do that.
I have just a question on general process. If we had a smaller subset of the committee as a selection board, couldn't everyone still attend and view because it will be in like public meeting format?
Oh, if it's a subcommittee, yes, I think.
Right, so then all of us could still attend and all of us could still
Provide public feedback.
comment, but only some of us would actually vote, and
That
then we
would be
could really
weird.
like.
Yeah.
No, that would be
Yeah.
So you're going to run into open meeting law violations. You're going to run into problems with, if a quorum of us are there,
Then it's
we
by default,
may
yeah.
not discuss it with each other. There, it has to. It would have to be a meeting of the committee.
You would also run into Chapter 7C issues because there's no public comment provided for in it. You have the same list of questions to ask of all designers after their presentation.
I say we put this item on the next agenda,
Yes.
and just say a selection board or a selection committee or whatever the generic term would be.
As is, just to
Yeah,
eliminate the
by
words
selection.
comprised of.
Yep.
I just want to ask. I mean, Anthony, you made the comment that you would encourage us to decide it now. What was the reason for that?
Just kind of in the interest of transparency. It's not a problem at all under the law. It's just it's good to know.
I just, honestly, if it's either gonna be this entire committee or a subset of this committee, and it's not gonna include people who are not on this committee, I think we're transparent enough. I mean, it doesn't matter.
I'm not gonna bring someone
I'm
into
not.
that.
I'm
just
not
saying-
gonna fight with it.
I just mean in terms of arguing this
Okay.
particular point right now.
The only other
I was just gonna say they're stuck with some of us. That's my point.
The only other change I made under selection process is a couple of references to the 3 finalists. I have changed to the finalists, which must number at least 3,
Yeah.
and they must under the law. But if we want 4, we can have 4. Anything else for selection process? Okay, evaluation criteria. Last part, largely unchanged. So everything. Okay, so the meat of this is the following criteria listed in random order. Is there anything before that point that we want to discuss? Okay, so the changes I made. We had a note here that just said, at the end, we had a note here that just said geography. I've changed it to familiarity with and proximity to the geographic location of the project. I've also added a recommendation of a colleague, degree of interest shown in the project. Some other suggestions. I can't remember if item 4, green design projects, is a change or just something someone wanted to discuss. And under item 1A, there was a comment about, do we need to define similar scope? And why do we have recreational? And I don't actually know why we have recreational.
We can replace that.
Right, I'm gonna strike recreational. So there was a comment about basically kind of defining scope better of this terms of size and, it will use your comment, Linus.
Yeah. Right, you know, so one of my questions is, do we wanna have people telling us about their experience in dealing with open classroom design, renovation, and, you know, getting rid of, because if, you know, if we have a bunch of applicants that can't demonstrate to us that they've thought about this, tackled it, accomplished it, have any experience in it, then I think that's important to know.
I would agree. Maybe we'll get a whole bunch of candidates who don't have that experience, but, and we'll cross that bridge, but if someone has that, I'd like to know.
So I like to leave that a little vague because it calls out the people that only know about nuclear power plants or schools built in Alaska. It's an instant clarification of the qualifications that they they present. If they're not focused on this project, then they're out. It's a very clear way to just make the distinction between the firms. If it's a little undefined in our cases.
I tend to go the same way. Giving the vendors an opportunity to demonstrate their intuition and understanding, or lack thereof, can be very telling. And I like giving them the room to either excel or hang themselves a little bit on these things. So we're okay with leaving that as is. Just say similar scope. That's all and I think the task force points on this section. So, and we've talked about these a lot. But if there's anything else on, and these criteria are completely unweighted, and in many cases not all that specific, and that's by design to kind of give us the opportunity to weigh things as we see fit, because we come here with a diversity of experience, and not all of us are going to weigh things the same, and that's by design. So. The rest of the contract is standard forms and the ad. Most of what's in the ad is mandated, but you may want to take a look at the edit. Oh, and attachments. So I think I've already made this change in my draft. Attachment D is the roof study. And current MSBA statement of interest is a question mark, I guess, if we actually want to provide that as part of this. I'd kind of rather let them find it if they want it, but
Yeah,
it's up to you.
I'm just wondering, for people that are applying for this, how much detail about this, the building itself, do they need? We were gonna provide the environmental analysis to the successful bidder. I mean, I don't care one way or another if we tell people what we found out about the roof, but you know, do we need to do that?
It will speed the process and reduce our costs.
I didn't get the last part.
It will speed the process and reduce our costs.
But I think the question from Maria is at which point do they give information?
I would suggest we give it to the successful proposer.
Right, so then it wouldn't be an attachment in this.
Same question then on historical energy use. Since it's a zero energy project, is it more relevant early or not?
I will give it to the successful person. What might be relevant to say, because somewhere it's these things are referenced in the body of the document.
I will
Still
update
keep
those.
the note that says
They exist.
they exist. Yeah.
But the statement of interest, I don't think we got a thumbs up, thumbs down on that. Is that even useful to them?
It's on our committee, so if they're interested, they can look at it.
It's dead easy to find.
Yeah. Alright, so the only attachments will be the required standard designer application and standard contract. That is, alright. If there's no comments on the ad, then we're done.
Guess you're gonna change the date on the briefing session.
Is that still, the time?
Yeah, just,
Yeah.
not
Yep.
date, but time.
Yep. Okay, so this will be advertised in the Daily Hampshire Gazette and the Central Register on May 2nd, as well as posted on the town's website, and the bulletin board in the lobby of Town Hall.
as required.
Most likely place. to look at.
I should probably also ask Sean if we can get it on the ARPS website, shouldn't I?
Yeah, no, it should go there.
We need to move to accept this or.
Is if everyone feels like they've given enough commentary?
And with the
entertain that.
and with the understanding of the one section that the task force is gonna change the numbers on.
Move.
Move to approve the request for qualifications, proposal documents for RFQ, number ARP is S18119, with additional edits by task force working group.
Second.
All in favor?
I,
Moving forward. It is, I'm gonna go to time check, it is 8:03.
I might make it through the public engagement in 20 minutes if I'm flying.
Does everyone have the time to,
I don't think we need to go through all of it since we already discussed most of it in previous meetings.
I think we need 20 minutes
okay,
if I'm flying.
okay.
Can we approve the invoice really quickly?
Yes, that was gonna be my suggestion, that we do our other vote real quick, and if we lose some people, at least we'll have had our vote. Can we go, did I bring copies? I believe I brought copies. Just pass them around this way, this way. This is the invoice for the previous minutes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the invoice.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Public engagement.
You doing it?
Let's do it.
All right. So I do have printouts. And sorry, I have not previously put the date on previous drafts. I'll try to do that in the future. So the idea behind having a document like this is so that, and published ahead of time, posted on our website, is so that the community has an opportunity not only to, comment on the content of what we're doing, but comment on how we are engaging with them. It's a big step in the transparency of the committee to be able to tell them how we're doing it. And that's why it's important that we actually approve a document like this. As Irene mentioned, the major points of this we have discussed before, but in the specifics, I'd really like to, at the end of this discussion today, be able to really say, this is it, this is what we're going with, and get it up on the website. The things that I have modified in this since the last meeting, as far as the public website goes, we had, right now, Irene and Anthony are the ones maintaining the website. We had previously said that the permission for the website would be set so that any member could update it. I don't think that is actually a realistic, can we do that? Because I would love to be able to still finagle, but it doesn't sound like that's gonna happen, right?
I don't know. I'm skeptical IT would be enthusiastic about that prospect. They can probably, I will say that I have mostly just kind of been a backup on the site and only done things when I read it was unavailable. I haven't touched it too much.
So we'll continue with that. I would like to suggest that we have a standing meeting agenda item to provide feedback to the website and really encourage people to continue to use the website as much as possible. If you need to find a document, look there first. That's the only way that the website is going to continue to be something that will really have all the information that we have. So we need to continue to provide feedback if we're not going to be actively doing the edits. On that note, I've noticed, I don't know if I would like to get in, the membership on the website is still lacking your name. You're not mentioned on it. We don't have the roles listed. We don't have the vacancies listed. So the membership, that's one item that needs to get updated on the website. We don't have the roofing study that was provided to the committee. The first set of meeting minutes we had did not have any of the attachments, the things that we considered a part of the meeting. So when we approved them, there was like, we discussed this, but then we didn't like attach it to that. So I'm wondering if there's a mechanism for us to go back and append them, or if we just want to, on the website, figure out a way to have those very adjacent to the meeting minutes, rather than hidden somewhere else.
So the way it works, there are there are 3 places to attach documents. The way it works, the website. One is for the minutes that goes automatically, gets posted. One is to the agenda that you can only put the agenda on the minutes, you can only put the minutes, and then there's a document repository. And the document repository is all the rest that is not agendas and minutes. So that's how it's set up by IT. We cannot modify it. Minutes goes one place, agendas in another, all other documents in another place.
And there's probably open meeting law rules for all those things.
Yeah,
I guess.
so that's we can also, the minutes, it's a separate, it's only one directory, they can only take the
Sure.
minutes, the other one is only the agenda.
Can we by vote to amend the meeting minutes so that we can get those attachments back onto the,
I would think so.
I don't
First,
know.
we'd have to find them.
First find them, and I don't know if I to replace the minutes, I don't know.
I mean, technically, how to actually make that happen on the website?
Yes, because I think they are not so simple. Once they're posted, it's not so simple to take it out and.
I'll look into it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have a whole pile of paper,
I mean, even if they
things from
Well, you
Nicole.
can post with
Yeah,
by date, but it's.
I'll see if I can at least find the,
I mean, things like this,
Pretty
like the
form.
draft of this, for example, isn't
Yeah.
floating with the meeting that we first discussed
attached
it.
it to.
So you read the minutes, you're like, what are they talking about? You know, so it'd be really nice if we could.
But I posted by date. I post things, I put everything is labeled by date, so if you want, you can link the date of the meeting with the date of the draft.
You have to like go back. I don't know. I think the ideal way would be to have things that were discussed in the meeting, to have the attachments like we do it now.
Right.
So mostly because that's the system we've sort of set up. So if we break the system in another part, it becomes much more confusing. Because that's how we do it now. It's how we've done it since, the 4th meeting or whatever.
Well, we'll certainly keep striving to keep them attached to the meeting minutes going forward, and we'll see
See it.
how to fix it for the past ones if we can.
Right. So that's Anthony is going to be looking into that. That's great. Anything else on the website? No, I think that's it. I have the library binder in my hands and going to take it down to Jones Library to have it put in the reference section. I edited what the contents are after actually sitting down and producing the thing. I made it a little more explicit about what was feasible to include in the binder. The one thing that we had discussed in the subcommittee as a goal was to provide some translations to do that, and Diane's not here tonight. She would have been the perfect person to ask what our resources are to produce those translations. I can probably, just leaning on my friends, I can probably come up with 5 languages, but I don't know if they're the languages that people want. Like I could get Russian and Korean and so maybe I'll just go back and ask Diane what those are. Before we had advertised,
The only question I had was, how did you come up with 5? Is that a standard within the town or for translation services?
it was something that Ms. Singer suggested, having worked in the schools.
Yeah.
The 5
Yeah,
most
I
common
didn't-
languages, yeah.
Yeah, I just was wondering why 5, not 3 or not 8, whatever.
I don't know.
All of the things that I get from the school are just English and Spanish.
Yeah, as I said, the town has no policy on that. I don't know if the school does.
So I think that the 2 most common languages in the public systems are first Spanish, then Chinese, then Korean, as far as I understand. Those are the top 3. There's a big gap between the Spanish speaker population and the Chinese and then.
So the things that, we had only talked about having the introduction translated in the binder. I was gonna suggest rather than writing something different, I felt like the mission statement from the school committee was a really good introduction, and to just translate that, as well as, instructions in whatever language we have for how to access the website, with translators. So I was gonna go down to, when I deliver this to the library, and ask the librarians if they could help me make language for how to do, you know, if somebody comes in that doesn't speak English, how can we direct them to the website and give them concise instructions on how to access a translator too. So that was a goal of when I go down there. So I'll follow up with Diane about translation. Do we feel like this five is a bit much? We'll ask Diane to weigh in again. The 3 being most likely. And the mission statement and the March 18th press release were the 2 things I suggested we translate, and try to figure out a way to make them prominent in the binder, which I'm not quite sure how to do that yet, but figure that one out. So if anyone wants to stick around afterward and look through that, they're welcome. And I will get that delivered to the library very soon. Spanish, Chinese, and Korean. I don't know. Well, if Diane can't help with that, I'll figure out how to make it happen. The email address. So number A, frequency to receive comment only. You guys actually discussed this at your last meeting so I finally listened to that today. So it says I had written in here, no responses to comments will be made, as this could potentially violate open meeting law. I believe, to summarize what you guys talked about at the last meeting, we should say something more like responses will be made from the chair or chair's designee as the chair deems appropriate. So I'd like to make that change to this.
And I think there was another piece about if someone wants it to be read publicly, they have to say so. Or, if someone wants to, we're not going to incorporate the comments we get via email.
I honestly would eliminate everything you just said.
Okay.
I would
Okay.
stick with what you just said. If the committee deems a letter that we get warrants discussion, we're going to discuss it. If we don't deem it that it warrants discussion, we'll read it, we'll think about it, we'll incorporate it in our thinking, and we'll move on. I don't think we should. And it's honestly not up to the person who writes us to decide or even think about whether or not it could be deliberated upon or not by our committee, because if they're going to write us, they have to assume it will be. Right? I mean,
Right.
But it might not be. Sorry.
That's okay.
Strong statement on my part, I apologize.
And I also wanted to change, so is that good? We'll just leave it. Okay. Part C, instead of just saying emails received through this will be forwarded to all school building committee members, change that to read, senders will receive an auto response indicating that emails received through this will be forwarded to all Porter School Building Committee members.
That is being done already.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. And does it also have the reminder that it's public record?
Probably not.
I didn't make any changes, so after the initial, so probably not.
Just so people are aware.
So
Yeah.
that will be, you guys have the ability to do
I
that?
can
To
do
an
that.
I can't do it. I can ask it to be done. To an extent, it's already too late when they're receiving that message.
Mhm.
Yeah.
If-
Yeah.
If we, you can just put it on the website, just say any communications with the public body such as.
It's true.
Or public, just so people know, it might
Yeah.
be their first time to interact with
The website is where that's gonna go. And so, it says this email has been set up through town staff and requires no further maintenance. Yeah. Email listserv. Anthony reported today that 13 people have signed up, 2 of whom are me and Maria, so we have an audience of 11 so far. We have
Great.
not sent anything to that listserv, as of yet. The hope was that we would be sending to that list meeting agendas, meeting reports, and we haven't been doing that. Is that something we want to continue to say that we'll do, or I think at one point we said we would send them a link to the website saying they've been posted, perhaps, or are we just going to want to use that listserv to announce things like the forums and
I think more that, I think otherwise it becomes
The
too
chore.
much.
And overwhelming to the inbox for. I mean, the one thing that's, if you really want to follow the committee, the fact that we have such odd times and infrequent, like, if I really wanted to follow the committee and just know when the last meeting happened, it'd be kind of nice to know, like,
Just the way that these kinds of alerts are set up in the town website, they don't, and the way other committees and other modules of the website use them, they're not really set up well to long discourse. They're more designed for alerts.
Is this
So-
basically the same
so-
system that sends out
Bid posting notices and parking bans.
parking bans
Yeah.
and committee?
It's the same,
dates?
it's the same system, yeah. So I think,
Okay.
I think short and sweet, and here's where you go to find out more, this is the way to,
right.
this is the way to go.
But do we want to, when we're having a meet, when we post to the town calendar that we're having a meeting, would it also make sense that we send a notice, an email to these people saying we're having a meeting? And I think just saying we're having a meeting is enough. I wouldn't even do the agenda and just have the same thing, we're having a meeting on this date and time. As always, agendas and minutes can be found on the website. So, but that will require, so who would take on that responsibility of making sure, like, right now, can we make it the job of the person who's putting it on the calendar to also send that email?
I don't mind sending the emails, I'd rather not write them, but if somebody wants to send me, please send this to the list, I will do that. I don't mind taking that part on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it should be, I mean, it should be 2 sentences. The building committee's next meeting will be on this
Next Wednesday,
date and
yeah.
time at this location. And
They're
then
just filling in a bit of data.
And that's, so every time we announce a meeting,
Yeah, so the process for announcing the meeting is that I go back and forth with Deb Westmoreland as to when we have to have doodle poll attendees. We pick a date, and she's able to sign into whatever system that does the actual posting of the meeting date, and then we all get a message from that. But it also goes up on the town's official location for the calendar.
I'm not sure it works that way, because the only reason I know we had a meeting tonight was from your email.
I've never received
So I
an
get-
official notice.
So I
Yeah,
wonder
the
how,
official notice.
maybe I made the incorrect assumption that because I get notices, that everyone gets them. But it must be because I'm committee chair, and that's something we should fix. Because I got this lovely little automated message that tells me exactly what I just told the system to tell everyone. Okay, that's good for me to know.
who wants to look into that?
I will talk to Deb Westmoreland,
if-
at least I understand better the process that happens after I select a date with her, and why I get notices that nobody else seems to get.
Okay. Will you ask, or,
We'll talk.
In the,
Okay.
in the interim, next time you schedule something, just let me know, and I'll put it on the list, and eventually, hopefully, I'll receive the same
Same
thing, we'll all receive the same thing, and I'll just do it.
I will warn you, the system that gives me this lovely notice also gives me a notice about every planning board meeting, every school board meeting, every meeting, so.
Given
well, that's why if the committee would like to sign up to this listserv,
We wouldn't have to get those, yes.
that would be one way to, if we get it
Yeah.
working well. And again, in the theory of we're all paying attention to the website, this would be another way for us to see how we're public facing, and would be a good thing to, so I would encourage everyone to sign up for this, the listserv, on the website. Big link. So the other things, so we'll announce meetings with a simple 2-sentence thing. We will announce our public forums. We will send press releases to that list. Those are the 3 things I see us doing with this, for those people who sign up. Is that what I wrote down here? Frequency, public posting of meetings, but not of, so we won't do the excuse me. Yes, we want press releases. We're not sending separate things for agendas, and we're announcing meetings is what we're doing. It would be nice if you taglined it, what all the emails with the website, so that people can link straight from that email to the website. And so the rest of that is fine. So, Anthony will kind of do the physical sending it out. I'll help compose any announcements about forums and press releases and work the content. How are we doing on time?
We're at 8:22.
I think we could do it in another 5 minutes, unless people, I think we've had half the discussion about the public forums already.
Yeah,
So, I wrote 6 total, being that, the design team would do the first presentation, and then we would try to repeat it one more time at a different, with the responsibility of someone in this committee taking the slide deck from the designer and then doing our best to regurgitate it at one other venue at a different time, so the public has 2 cracks at getting the same information.
I wonder if it's not just one in person and that presentation's recorded and available on the website.
Yeah. I think absolutely.
Because I think if we don't, maybe we get like 20 people or whatever at the first one, and then we might get like 2 at the second one, and I just feel like that's a lot of money.
Yeah, I wouldn't have the designers make the second presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about, I think this is something we should probably talk in more detail eventually about. But I could imagine a case where maybe we want it recorded, and we want the slide deck, and maybe it's presented at the principal's coffee, after the event. Just at other venues, other places to kind of disseminate it, but in a more.
Do we need to promise on the thing?
Yeah, maybe not.
I would say I like the idea of the recording and talking. I would say location should not be here, it should be downtown, somewhere centralized, because we want to attract
That's right.
all
Yeah.
aspects, all society, the whole community, so it should not be here.
It's like the library.
But the idea,
But the logic behind that, though, was, we want people to have an understanding. It's an opportunity for the public to understand the building and the site, so it's a way to kind of drag
But
them down
it's
here.
very hard to come here. Today the door was locked, we cannot come in. It's we want to get people that it's easy to way transport. If we want to engage the community, it has to be in a place that it's easy to access. So it has to be downtown.
I would also imagine most of this is gonna happen in the summer,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And this building is just out of the question.
Yeah.
And they've been also the PGOs, involvement with the PGOs, this is gonna happen this summer. The PGOs are shutting down June 20th and they don't come back until September, the first week of September. So we cannot commit to say, no, the PGO is gonna have a coffee night, because many of these things are gonna happen in the summer. So I think it has to be in the downtown.
Yeah, I'm kind of envisioning the 3 major milestone ones. Hopefully we can find a time to get the town room, honestly. I mean, that would be the best spot for it. We'll have to pick a date or a day when zoning board or the planning board or one of the other committees is not using it, but that's got good recording equipment, it's got good display equipment. That's really the best venue for our major events.
So I'm gonna go ahead and put desired location, the town room.
Yeah. And that
We-
may
we
mean
do wanna
conforming
allow-
our schedule to the town's schedule. So,
So what I said about the PGOs, so timing, I said one weekday evening. This is the kind of thing that I would like to get out there so we can get public feedback on. I mean, this is an outline, right? It's not meant to be, if we have to change it, we have to change it. But the reason I want to get out there is I would love, if we get 10 people that come up and say that, it's just not, I would love to get enough information out there that we're soliciting some feedback. So I don't just want to strike it, I just want to put out our best guess right now. So, so for public forum, 6 total, 2 each of the following milestones, so I know the milestones. No, wait, I need to indent those further, sorry. Should be the next thing. And I'll grab that from the other thing. Is that clear enough? 6 total, 2 at each of the following milestones, okay. And then desired location, the town room, timing, 1 weekday evening and 1 weekday day for each milestone.
Her suggestion was to do 3, make sure we have 3 that are recorded and maybe have supplemented the second one.
So frequency 3. I mean, do we wanna make it a goal though, that we're repeating it or not? Just say 3. I mean,
Yes, commit to the
just
3
do
for now, and
3.
if we can figure out,
Yeah.
you know, it's a work, as you said, it's a work in progress.
So if somebody comes back and says no. And then, so for timing, do we just wanna just say weekday evenings? At a time when I can hardly ever meet. On weekday evenings. The presenter or the facilitator is the architect. And
It's- Well, that's my role as chair, I'll be chairing said thing, yes.
presenter,
But
facilitator,
presumably
architect,
we'll all
and-
be there for these, or as many of us as can attend that event. I
Yeah.
mean, they are technically one of our public meetings, so we should really have a quorum.
Mhm. Should I just strike that whole thing?
Oh, with the presenters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Recorded and not posted on our website. And because we're not doing so I had put the person, we kind of needed someone coordinating the efforts, because I was imagining like doing a roadshow. But since that's not happening, I don't know that we need to, because it's going to be part of our normal meeting process, and it's going to be so baked in if we're just
Yeah.
doing the 3, that I don't think we need a specific chair for this thing. Hey, and we got some press releases. Does anyone know, so we sent out the one press release, and we did push it a little bit. Was that, who sent it out to the,
I sent it to Debbie, and Debbie pushed it out through the news that she usually pushes out press releases for the school.
that was more so I saw it, I'm just wondering how much traction we got from that press release. And I saw it in the Fort River PGO newsletter. Was it in the superintendent's
Yes.
newsletter? It was picked up by the school committee in a guest column in the bulletin. They kind of mentioned a little bit of blurb about it. Does anyone follow the other, like, did it make it into the Crocker Farm PGO? Did it make it into the high school, junior high?
Yes.
Yeah, Crocker did. Do we know about high school, middle school? Okay. So, wanted to get a gauge of how well we're doing there. I don't envision a different way to go about it. The only thing I'd like to say I do think when we do a press release for the bulletin, we should send it to the bulletin, but I think we also need to submit a letter to the editor. I think each press release should be the form of a press release and a letter to the editor, because that's what the newspaper suggested that we do. Because we increase our chances. If we want to get our information out there, we make it as easy on the bulletin as we possibly can.
I don't think that we should need a letter to the editor on every press release. I think
It's just a slight modification.
for some, no, it's different. One is a press release, one is a letter to the editor. So I think maybe we want a letter to the editor when we have, at the end, maybe, and maybe midway when we have all the proposals in and we are waiting on the options to get more attention, but not at every single step, because it dilutes the purpose of the press releases and everybody's gonna get tired of saying this. You want on the major milestones.
Well, let's talk
maybe
about how many press releases we want. I mean, I've only got 5 here.
I would say maybe one letter to the editor, or 2 letters to the editor, and so on, but no.
Well, it's not, there's no guarantee that they're gonna get published
Yeah.
either, right? So you submit it. I think we shoot for as much press as we can get. I mean, it's not like we're sending emails out when people just go over and click it. If you're sitting down and reading the newspaper, you're reading the newspaper. I don't feel like you get saturation in that format.
The question is, what do you want to communicate in a letter to the editor saying we chose an architect? There's not much letter to the editor, we chose an architect. Just announce it that it should.
We can do it as a one-off, so we can say that, you know, we'll see which one of these milestones makes sense to do both. I would say if we want to get published, we should try to get published. And that means a letter to the editor and a press release. So we've done upon formation of committee, and then the other suggestions for press releases was coming up soon when we finish the RFQ, just an update.
I assume you'll wait until we actually publish the
Yes.
RFQ to do that.
Yeah, upon publication.
Which will be next Wednesday.
And again, all these press releases drafted and approved by the committee. Drafted by, that's big blanket bottom. Does anybody want to be the press release draft person? I'll put my name down. Okay.
I'll work on it.
Okay, Heather and, all right.
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of getting them to put stuff in the paper, I mean, we can call Dusty, we can call Scott, and, you know, the letter to the editor, it's anybody's guess when things get published, and it's more opinion piece, but I think, you know, you just, if we send it to Dusty or Scott, I think they should just write a quick little article. I mean, the press release is gonna have all the information that you need, you just have to push them on it.
Push them on writing an article, that would also be nice on some major milestone.
So Dusty's the one that suggested that we send it as a letter to the editor as well. And the thing is, the difference between a press release and a letter, I mean, there's a voicing difference, but as far as content goes, I mean, it's a 20-minute exercise in changing the format of a thing. Anyway, we don't need to keep everybody late. I think that'll be a one-off decision. So when we're going to do these press releases, we've already done one upon publication of the request for qualification for the architect, upon the selection of the architect. Let me know if this is too many. Advertising in public forums, there'll be 3 of those, and 1 at the end of the process. So that's a total of 1, 2, 3, 6, 7 press releases over a course of a 2-year project. The content will be approved ahead of time, and we'll get Debbie to push these things.
Yep.
That's it?
Okay.
Yay. How do we do? 20 minutes? No, we're over.
Not too bad. 8:35. Do we,
Yeah, so I will make these edits. Do we need to talk about it one more time? Is this something we need to actually really say yay before we publish it, or do you want me to just make those edits and give it to, or you need to put on the website?
Yes.
yeah, that's what I would do.
All right.
Yeah, I don't think we need to formally vote it.
Awesome.
I want to say thank you. I think that was really well thought out. It's important.
Everybody protesting.
Well, I think at this point, I was there mostly to see if there was anything to report. If there's nothing to report, then we can,
We came, we saw, we tested, nothing of any consequence. We did it on the 12th. We picked up the last components on the 16th.
okay.
We'll see reports in early June.
So that will return in early June.
And when the invoices come in, I'll have the invoices.
Yeah. I guess the only thing I'm going to say before I let us adjourn is I'm going to have to have Deb send around another round of doodle polls, and we're going to probably need 7 because Ben will soon be a voting member. Eric?
Yeah, also I didn't want to leave that hanging.
Yeah.
So the town clerk's office said that you need to send a letter to official letter to both Ben and the town clerk.
Okay. Both.
Appointing Ben, and then he will be sworn in. So that was,
Doesn't that still put us at 11?
But that puts us 11.
Yeah.
And I had to get out my calculator. That might make it 8.
Well, I wasn't trying to really solve that
No,
problem.
no,
I was trying to make it be known how to get it appointed.
It's
It's
six.
simple, it's a simple majority, okay, I thought it was,
Yeah.
would be 2/3.
No.
No,
Okay, good, this, one of Deb's emails made me feel that way.
can we ask that to everybody to look at the protocol that we had filled and see if we can squeeze one or two more?
I would like to
sausage?
get another one in May if we can. And if everybody does, but if everybody's, can just look at it one more time for the dates that are already posted, we have at least one date that has 6, and that should be more than adequate to hold a meeting.
Since I missed the discussion about meeting reports, I'm wondering if we can highlight the meeting reports action items? Because we've come in a couple different meetings when it's been like, oh, did you do that? No, yeah. So in the meeting reports, if we can just like somehow highlight or bold.
If someone says they're gonna do something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, adjourn,
Second.
all in favor?
Uh,